It's my great pleasure to introduce Callie Feyen, one of our own here at First Presbyterian Church. Callie is a member of the church, so many of you know her. She is also the mother of Hadley and Harper, 19 and 17, about ready to be an empty nester. She is an adjunct professor at Washington Community College, where she teaches children's literature, creative writing, and English composition. She also serves as an academic advisor at Concordia University, for however long Concordia is going to be there.
Going down with the ship.
Going down with the ship. When we swung from Church Bells, Stories That Shape Our Faith and Faith That Shapes Our Stories, is her third book, just out. Her earlier books are The Teacher Diaries, Romeo and Juliet, from 2018. And this book is a memoir of teaching Shakespeare to high schoolers. And then she has another book from 2021, no, that's in the future, from 2021, which is a coming of age narrative titled Twirl and subtitled My Life with Stories, Writing, and Clothes. So this is her third book in 6 years. So she's spending a good amount of her time writing. She also has a blog on Substack entitled Tell Me a Story That's Time, a creative nonfiction habit. So please join me in welcoming Callie, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about my dream job, which I really think is more of an experiment. So every day for a year, I want to meet the President of the United States in the Oval Office and read him one story. And then I want him to read to me, if he can. I'm sorry. Got to be on my best behavior. My parents are here. The rules are the read-alouds last only an hour. We have to share why we like the story, why it matters to us. There can be milk and cookies. There can be no committee, no task force, no objectives or measurable outcomes. I read to him and he reads to me. That's it. I'm convinced something would happen because I believe stories are sacred, and I think when something sacred happens to us, we are imprinted in a way that makes us see and walk in the world differently. I know I'm asking a lot. I know everyone thinks my idea is laughable. But is it more ridiculous than a father saying, all right, you are all messing everything up. This is not the way it's supposed to be. I love you all so much that all I know to do is send my son to die for each of you. What kind of crazy story is that? So now that I've completely disturbed you, let's unpack these words, sacred and story. So if you have paper, you can certainly, paper and a pen, you can go through this exercise. My husband will pass them out. Or you can just shout it out. When I work with writers, and especially when they're trying to write about faith, we use a lot of words like hope, faith, trust, love, sacred. I think after a while, those things fall flat. So we need some sensory details. So when you hear the word sacred or when you hear the word story, what comes up? What does sacred look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? Does it have a sound? What comes to mind when you hear these words? And you can shout them out if you want to, or you can just write them on your piece of paper. Light.
Silence.
Silence. Nice.
Set apart.
Set apart.
Spice.
Yeah.
Sound.
Sound.
Music.
Music.
Special feeling.
Special feeling. I like that. Mountaintop. Yeah.
Dancing.
Dancing. Oh yeah, dancing. All right, so those of you who are writing the devotions for Lent, this is kind of how I start with when I'm writing something. I'll pick out a word, and then I'll say, okay, what does this feel like? What does it taste like? That kind of thing. And I try to get a lot of sensory details so that I'm not just using faith. I'm kind of saying, this is what faith looks like. This is what it feels like. And then what I do is I come up with memories, thoughts, and particularly an image. We really need that image for these phrases that we use, like sacred story, or like having faith, or something along those lines. Oh, by the way, I have a little workbook that I'd be happy to email you if you want to use these over and over again. So does anybody have a memory that if you want to share, that goes along with sacred? Or any thoughts, or can you think of an image that goes along with sacred or story? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I have a little story.
Okay.
And the story is, okay. Am I speaking? Can you hear me now? Okay. Here's a little story. My daughter was sleeping on the couch in front of a big window at our house one night, and she woke up in the morning and she had a yellow slip of paper, and she said these words had come to her during the night, and she read them to my husband and I, and it felt like the sacred was working with her, through her. It was remarkable.
Wow. That's a great story.
Title of your book reminded me of a story. And the first time I went to a Methodist church on Plymouth Road, small church. There were 6 of us. Wasn't room on the first floor, so we went to the balcony. And as the church service started, the minister came forward and looked at me, sitting in the balcony, and said, "It's up to you now to ring the bell." Which I'd never done. I didn't know where the rope was. Somebody pointed to me. And so that was a welcoming to that church.
Oh, I love that.
Special to us.
Yeah. You could almost unpack the ringing of the bell as a metaphor to send you off to, that's what it looks like to witness, is ringing the bell, sharing the good news. That's great.
Well, this is a little bit canned, I think. I have been to what's called the Sacred Garden.
Oh.
It's in Maui, and it's sort of like, I don't know how to describe it except it's an outdoor greenhouse, but they have there's flowing water, lovely plants, a stream going through one side, and Buddhas, and all sorts of images from different religions.
Nice.
And then they have like a parrot in a huge container, so that you have life in so many different forms. It's really lovely.
Life in so many different forms. I like that. It's a great image. Anything else? Yes, please.
I was on the pilgrimage to northern Spain with some of the people in the room, and on one of the last days of walking, I was walking with one of the other walkers, and we were in a woods, and we came around a corner, kind of as the path was winding, and there was a table along the side of the path, and on it was a sound system, and Mozart's 39th piano concerto was playing. And it was this sound that filled this whole space of this sacred hike, this sacred pilgrimage route.
Nice.
And it was magic.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
When I was about 12 or so and had First Communion in Presbyterian Church, where I grew up in Milwaukee, and we were all sitting in with our brand new dresses and, all dressed up. and we were going through the ceremony of communion, and suddenly I had this above body lift, and I was like way out of my body, and it was expansive. It was just precious.
Yeah.
It was truly sacred.
Yeah,
And then
sounds
I
like
looked
it.
to the right and to the left, and nobody looked unusual. So I thought, no, this was for me.
Nobody was joking around with you. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, as I said, if you are writing for devotions for Lent or Advent or whenever it is that you're doing that for First Press, this is a nice exercise to, like I said, unpack some of those. Oh dear. Uh-oh. Jesse. Okay. Some of those words that they tend to fall flat after a while. We want to know, we need some fresh stories. So the other thing that I do is, I don't think I'm going to say this correctly. Have you ever heard of Lectio Divina for reading, spiritual reading? So I kind of like to say it's a stillness, and you have to stay and you have to see. So I'm going to take us through a piece of an excerpt from the book Still Notes on a Mid-Faith Crisis by Lauren Winner. And it's a little bit about confirmation. And the quote is, "I think of a confirmation story my friend Julian told me. She was 12 and she was preparing to be confirmed. A few days before the confirmation service, she told her father, the pastor of the church, that she wasn't sure she could go through with it. She didn't know that she really believed what she was supposed to believe, and she didn't know that she could proclaim in front of the church that she was ready to believe it forever. What you promise when you are confirmed," said Julian's father, "is not that you believe this forever. What you promise when you are confirmed is that this is the story you will wrestle with forever." Kind of a tougher promise, I think, but so I'll have the other slide in just a minute, but this is what I want to do. What is one word or phrase the Holy Spirit impresses upon you in this excerpt? Listen. Seeking. Wrestle for me. Usually the words that I don't want put on me are the ones the Holy Spirit puts on me. Any phrase or? All right. She didn't know. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so taking that word or phrase, let's reflect. What do you feel? How does that make you feel? What specific situation in your life relates? This could be for a devotional practice, so you do not have to share if you don't want to. But this is something that I like to do when I'm reading either the Bible or even just literature in general. I like to write about how this makes me feel. Anybody have any responses to what you feel when you read this, or any specific situations?
Well, wrestle, if we're going back to that word, it's a really, I don't think of it so much as a mental, When I think of the word wrestle, what am I doing wrong? Just push it a little close. When I think of the word wrestle. Long push.
She's going to throw it at the wall in a second.
Sorry. Okay.
We are wrestling with this microphone, and I'm thinking, and it's a physical wrestle, but it's also a mental wrestle. So I love that word because it brings in those two aspects, and probably a whole lot more.
Yeah.
So
Emotional too.
thank you.
There's definitely
Yes,
tension in
yes.
that word.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Am I allowed to ask you a question?
Sure.
I just want to ask you, so it really is striking to me that you said when you read the Bible or when you read any story, you ask yourselves these questions.
Yeah.
Have you always done that? I mean,
No.
is that, can you say a
No.
little bit about how you came to this, to the, like the basically the next slide, the sort of the read, reflect, respond,
Yeah.
rest. Sorry, so I don't know if you were going to say that.
I don't know how it started. I think reading has always been pretty difficult for me, and so this is kind of a way to unpack the story. I keep using that word, but also bear it. I think I'm probably a pretty sensitive person when it comes to stories in general, and so to read something, even if it's something as like a young adult novel, those things impact me in a way. And so this is kind of a nice way to, like I said, bear the story. And then also in this next one, what is God calling you to do through this text? I think that's a really nice thing a nice way to respond to what we're reading. Maybe even if it's in the New York Times. What is God calling us to do when we read? Kind of like what Hannah was talking about today. We do have to participate, but are we called to scroll past it to as a balm, or are we called to sit with this for a little bit? That alleviates a little bit, because I feel like I'm in participation with God. God's given us this story, and now we are bearing it with him. And again, I think it was Mark that said, if we are created in God's image, then we are also creators, right? That's our inheritance. So what do we create with what we've been given? And so if you've been, given a story, we probably ought to talk back to it in some way. So, all right. So there's a really good podcast where they read a chapter of Harry Potter and then they do this. And it's really cool. I don't know how, it's really long because it's all 7 books, but it's a really interesting, they spend an hour on one chapter and they say, what is this text calling me to do? What is God calling me to do?
Callie, the reason that you like the young adult literature, I do too.
Yeah.
And I remember when I had to move beyond picture books to word books.
Yeah.
Books. Yeah. And I like the simplicity of it, but they're not.
No. Yeah. I'm always impressed with when a writer can do the teenager. You know what the clue is? I always think, and this is actually Lauren Winter, she was one of my teachers. She told me to read young adult literature in my grad studies, which I thought she was handing me a pass out, but it was actually what she was saying. She said, look for the mother. What is the mother doing in this story? Is she present? And if there is a parental figure in this story, it's worth it. It's well-rounded, because our children might not be. It's their stories, but we're still in them, right? So we might not be the main character of our children's stories, but we can write motherhood. And we have an active role in their lives as well. So that's it is simple, but it's not. There are some simple ones out there, but there are some simple adult fiction stories out there too. All right. Okay, so bathroom miracles. I went to Lake Geneva youth camp a few summers growing up. It was a week-long sleepaway camp. And on the last night, everyone was invited to share their asking Jesus into our hearts story. This was not something I could do, nor was it something I wanted to do. It's not because I didn't believe. It's not because I wasn't a Christian. The story was too big for me to find a way in. Here's what I could have talked about, though. There was a snack shop that was open in the afternoon, and we had a card that we could use to buy candy. I thought this was the coolest thing. And every afternoon, I bought a package of gummy bears and 1 Slim Jim beef jerky. And I would sit on the step outside of the snack shack and enjoy every bite before heading off to swim. I loved swimming in the lake, loved running off the pier and diving in. We would swim to a small wooden plank that wobbled when we stood on it, which made us wobble even more, and just before we all completely lost control of our balance, we'd dive or flip-flop and do it all over again until a counselor told us it was time for dinner. One of the pastors taught us how to sing around during our chapel services, and I think that was my first time feeling harmony and realizing what happens when different voices sing the same words. Once during mail day, one of the cabin mates held a care package filled with goodies from her mom and dad, but she didn't look happy about it at all. In fact, her mouth was quivering and tears were threatening to fall from her eyes. Our counselor asked her what was wrong, and she said, "If I open my mouth, I'll cry." This is my first memory of understanding what it feels like to hold love and sadness at the same time. These are moments I come back to again and again, and while I think there is holiness in the big moments, I believe there's just as much holiness in small moments. I believe paying attention to and telling about them deepens our faith, even when it happens in a bathroom. So here is a little chapter. Something that happened right down the hallway a few years ago. Advent in a church bathroom. In the women's bathroom at church, there is a border of wallpaper running just below the ceiling with these words: serenity, home, creativity, simplicity, and beauty. The words are printed in what looks like a medieval font, so there's a seriousness to them, a sacredness. I read them while I'm waiting for a stall, and I wonder if these are words a woman ought to strive for in her pursuit of the life of a Proverbs 31 woman. Lately, I've been writing under a thick blanket of doubt, my yarn weak and ripping, and I don't know if it can be mended together, no matter how much I love it, no matter how much I want to hang on it. It seems to be disintegrating. Standing here in this church bathroom, I'm wondering what serenity and creativity have to do with each other. I wonder if I will ever obtain simplicity in my lifetime. I think I won't if I keep writing. One woman walks into the bathroom with a cane. "Hello," she says to me, and her smile is so sweet that I want her to tell me everything she knows about beauty and simplicity and serenity and home. Tell me everything you know in this small bathroom with the clanging radiator and the frosted windows. She lifts her cane onto a shelf and says, "Oh my, these are real." She turns to me totally delighted that a handful of sprigs with red berries on them are real. Like, what better thing could there be to know that something is alive? "They're standing in water," she exclaims. "They're beautiful," I say, because they are, but I also don't know what else to say. I hadn't noticed the berries. I was ruminating over my lack of simplicity. Another woman walks in and she goes right to the vase with the berries. "Those are real," she says, equally pleased, and the two of them hover over them, not touching the berries. But their hands form a cup shape, as though they are getting ready to hold an infant's head. "What kind of berries are they? Are they holly?" "No, they can't be holly." I leave the two of them discussing the red pop of the berries, their voices like young girls at a birthday party who scored the slices of cake with the frosting flowers, and walk upstairs to where my girls are singing "Light Dawns on a Weary World." "We shall go out with joy and be led forth in peace, as all the world in wonder echoes shalom." I can hear the music from down the hallway, young voices singing about the arrival of someone notable, someone come to bring us joy and peace and wonder. Maybe I'm not supposed to figure out what each word to do with each other. Maybe what it is they have in common is that they point to something alive, and understanding that I am to say this is real, delighted and mystified and echoing the life I see but do not always understand, and nothing more. So, thank you. So here's an exercise. Again, if you want to do this now, we have a little time too. But also, if you are doing a writing practice or even drawing or painting, this is something I like to do when I'm in the mood where like nothing ever happens to me, or I tell this to my students too, nothing ever happens to me. So I tell them to find 10 moments from today, just any 10 moments. Think about getting dressed, think about eating breakfast, think about walking outside, getting in the car. List them down and then try to see if you can find the holy in them. That's what I did with this bathroom moment. And it's basically waiting to see, are you awake? Are you awake in your own life? And can you see God's presence with you wherever you are and whatever you're doing? So 10 moments, and again, if you want to take some time to do that, you can. If you want to share, takes a little time for me to find the holy, so I don't expect you to do it right now, but you can also have some time to do the 10 moments.
Does everybody have something?
You can also just think of them too. And then an extra challenge is, what if I said you can't count any of the moments in church? Can't say when I was singing a hymn or when I was praying. What if it was, oh, well, I guess I broke the rule because I talked about being in the bathroom in church. So that's one of the editors.
Is that at this church?
Yeah, it's the one right down the hallway. Yeah. Oh, is there? There's not a window in there, is there?
Must have been the kids' room.
Yeah. I thought it was the one right down the hall. Yeah. Anybody have a moment and that they're starting to see? Maybe you can share if you want to. If you don't want to, that's absolutely okay.
Well, Callie,
Yeah.
I can give a moment if you need a break in the quiet.
Sure. What do you got?
Okay. Anyway, this morning at 7:15, I have 3 chocolate labs, and one of them is 6 months old. And every morning, and I think, why did I do this to myself? I get up, I put on my boots and my old white robe, and I crawl out through the garage, and I watch all 3 of them out in the woods, and I think, why have I done this to myself? And then I turned to the right, and the sun was coming up through the mist, and I thought,
That's why.
That's why.
Yeah.
So that would be
That's
one
nice.
of my moments. So you got one. you
I
have
can
one.
definitely relate to that.
Anybody else have another moment or moments? No.
What I like about that is you really dug into the tension of it. The sun rising was a nice end to what the tension was.
I think so many of those nature scenes. For me, I think the sun or I'm speaking of nature scenes are ones in which I think the holy breaks through. And was it last week, just looking into the eastern sky when you see a full moon rising?
yeah.
That's, to me, hard not to regard as a sacred moment, just in its majesty and its beauty and its wonder.
Yeah.
You know, that and it's just how suddenly it appears.
It is. I agree. And now I'm obsessively watching after 5 o'clock how long it stays light. That it's just like a present every day. It's just like a little bit longer. It's really fun to hold out.
Sorry, I feel like
No.
I'm sharing more than I normally do, but
That's okay.
I'm gonna. I have a profane. I mean, compared to some of these stories. I mean, some of my friends here know I'm on Facebook a lot, and this morning there was a song that someone had. It was a resistance song. It was a beautiful resistance song that someone had posted. And I remember, should I repost this or not? Anyway, I reposted with joy because it was so lovely.
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
I had an experience the other day with our little dog. We live in a rural area where we have lots of wildlife, and so it's not uncommon to see the remains of something that has been eaten, and turkeys are often the victims. And our little dog Frank, who's a little Jack Russell, who has got a spirit that, it's good that he's cute. That's the only thing that saves him. But we were on a walk, and he runs off leash, and we came across what was a turkey with feathers and some spare parts lying about. And,
oh no.
And Frank, of course, found an intact turkey claw with with part of the leg still attached, and it's so gross. And I was looking at him, and I was like, "This is so gross." And he put the whole thing with this big claw hanging out of his mouth, and he's tiny. He's only 20 pounds, and he's like a little guy. But he was just running with this turkey claw.
So proud.
And the look of, at first I was so grossed out, and then I looked at him and just had to stand in awe of the absolute bliss that was on his face, and it was like witnessing pure essence, like a creature being exactly what he was meant to be. And I just thought, wow, should we all have that experience?
Yeah. I love that. Good stuff. Yeah.
Well, this has been shared with millions of people, but it seems like it should be brought up about all the monks walking from Texas to D.C.
Yeah.
And how wonderful it was to see them walking through a bed of fresh flower petals, rather than shielding themselves against tear gas.
Yeah.
It was so dramatic, wasn't it? And
so
many people coming, and little kids, giving flowers, and old people. This old man just melted into tears just to see the monks walking.
Yeah.
And I love that they were monks. They just represented something holy, sacred, and it wasn't what religion are you in, or how you interpret things. It was just the sacred. It was present. It was shared with everyone.
Yes.
It was just what we needed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Bill has something.
Sure.
I had some moments yesterday watching Olympic synchronized group skating. It was amazing. Truly amazing. It wasn't athletic. There was athletic functions involved, but the harmonies in groups of usually 16 on the ice, sometimes 20, 24. Wow. Oh, Lordy.
That's great. All right. Move to here. So I want to talk a little bit about Mary, and she really hinges on the book. Really hinges on her. And so as I'm speaking, maybe you think of a hymn or a psalm or a character in the Bible that you come back to again and again, or somebody who maybe even haunts you, because Mary kind of haunts me a little bit. So it wasn't a deliberate decision that she was going to be in the book as much as she was until the third or fourth revision, when my friend and poet Megan Willamy noticed that in several of the essays I'm grappling with Mary's willingness to treasure and ponder all that happens to her, and all that happens to her son, but not really saying anything about the experience. I really had a hard time with Mary actively treasuring and pondering, but not saying anything about it. But Megan noticed that I was challenging that idea, and that was my way of keeping my promise to wrestle with the stories in the Bible. She suggested I put my witness poem in the center of the book so that there are 12 essays before and 12 essays after. So that's what I did. So there's a poem in the book called Witness, and after that are pretty much distinctly all motherhood essays, and before that they're not. So I did that, except I had one problem. I had more essays on one side on the before than I did on the after. And then Hadley got sick. So I found my last chapter. And it is Before the Story Ends, Faith. I am sitting next to Hadley in a hospital room at the University of Michigan. It is Labor Day weekend. Hadley has been a freshman at Michigan for less than a week. Outside, about a block away, students walk the campus in Greek row. Music bumps. Red Solo cups are everywhere. It is the Friday before the first home game. Hadley is fighting a kidney infection. The fighting looks like this: extreme chills, extreme heat, vomiting, and pain. So much pain. When the chills come, the nurses bring heated blankets and drape them over Hadley. I stand over her and rub her arms, back, and legs. It is the only thing that makes the shaking stop. When she gets hot, I rip the blankets off, tear off her socks, and wind her Rapunzel-like hair into a top knot, some pieces already drenched from the sweat. I hold a cold washcloth to her forehead until I feel my palm radiate with her heat. I quickly flip sides, then run to the sink to start it all again. When it's over and she's sleeping, I fold the blankets. They are thin and beige and linen-like, and it disturbs me when I think they might be similar to the cloth Jesus was buried in, that Mary Magdalene found when the stone was rolled away. Tonight, Hadley's nurse is named Hope. Hope loves Hadley's nails. They're fresh, Hope says as she flushes Hadley's IV. Hope, who can't be more than 4 years older than Hadley, calls her sweetheart, rubs Hadley's feet, cleans up Hadley's vomit as though there's nothing in the world she'd rather do. I watch the two of them interact and think in another situation they'd probably be friends. I'd bet on it. Hadley is the friendliest, most effervescent person I've ever met. To see her sick is terrifying, and while I know this is hard on her, I know what's excruciating is being isolated from all the college activity she could not wait to be a part of. Hadley was ready for college in kindergarten. This is not how the story is supposed to go. Hope and Hadley are giggling about something I know nothing about, and I'm grateful for this crumb of interaction Hadley has offered. I can tell Hope is too. This is Hadley's magical power. She makes people believe we're all in this together. And what's more, isn't it fantastic we're all here, working it out together? Hadley's faith in the goodness and greatness of people is astounding. Hope asks Hadley what she's majoring in, what dorm she's in, and what she thinks of her classes while she takes Hadley's vitals. Her temperature is 103. That's really high, Hope says. No duh, I want to say. She leaves and Hadley turns to me crying. I hate this, she says. I know, I say back. I hate this too. And that is the end of the conversation. We both hate this situation. There's nothing more to say. The end. Hadley doesn't want to watch TV or play cards. She doesn't want to do anything to take her mind off how she feels. So we sit in silence, and I am forced into treasuring and pondering 101. Mary is my teacher. I hate this class. 3 times we are told Mary treasures and ponders her circumstances as the mother of Jesus. The number gets on my nerves. If it were just the 1 time, maybe even 2 times, I'd feel fine rolling my eyes and dismissing the line as precious. But 3 suggests wholeness. It suggests completeness. It suggests God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit are here in this room, and I ought to pay careful attention to what Mary is telling me about this part of motherhood. The part when we are vessels for a story that is not our own. A few years ago, I went to a funeral for a friend who'd lost her husband. He died suddenly. My friend, newly widowed, also learned she was pregnant. Who's writing this story? One of my friends asked as we stood outside of the church. Jesus, he added. He was not answering his question. This was slang, a taunt, tone I am sure Jesus is used to, tone I believe Jesus considers a call. Indeed, this is the plot, as terrifying and devastating and confusing as it is, I imagine Jesus saying back, and I'm in the story with you. I'm not leaving you. But I want this story to be over. I want this story to never have happened. Let's swing to another story, Jesus. Let's find treasure there, please. Hadley tosses blankets off of her, and I stand, give one a shake, then begin to fold it. I move on to the next, then another, until I've made a neat stack on the counter next to cups of water and jars of applesauce. I pick up one of the cups and bring it to Hadley. She lifts her head slightly and sips through the straw. I watch her, careful not to move because it shifts the straw, and Hadley can't drink without it. Yesterday, after one too many misses, Hadley said, Mom, I'm going to make eye contact with you when I'm done drinking so you'll know when to move. Okay, I said, and offered her the water. Just follow the system, she said, and closed her eyes so as to give me a little chance as possible not to get confused. A decision I appreciated because I was trying very hard not to laugh at Hadley's command to follow the system. She opened her eyes as wide as she could go, again, so there'd be no confusion, and I lost it. "I'm sorry," I said, but continued to laugh. "Just follow the system," I teased, and then we were both laughing. Now Hadley lifts her eyes towards me to let me know she's done. There's a hint of humor in her eyes, and I return the look, having faith that humor will carry a path for hope. I take the cup away. "How about a story?" I asked Hadley, walking over to my bag and picking up Life of Pi. "Okay," she says. I scooch my chair as close to her as I can get, not even hiding my enthusiasm that I get to read to her like I used to, and also knowing if Hadley had the energy, she'd roll her eyes. "My suffering left me sad and gloomy," I begin, and instantly second-guess my decision to pick this book, but I continue because there's nothing else to do, because Hadley has agreed to listen, because I want to read her a story. I don't know how far we'll get. Hadley might get bored, or she'll get better and we'll pack up and leave this place. For now, I'll sit next to her and read the story for as long as she wants. For now, we'll keep carefully a story of suffering that leaves us sad and gloomy, but hold on to the belief that there is beauty to be found if we're willing to hunt for it. Not the beauty that promises happy endings or that everything will be okay. The beauty that promises nothing except that it can imprint itself onto all of us, seep its way into everything we do and say and see. It is beauty that will never leave us. It is my hope this will happen, and so we keep reading." So one of the things that I love about creative nonfiction is that the practice supports me in every area of my life. So just a quick definition, creative nonfiction is taking the truth and using components of fiction to handle the truth. So you're still telling the truth, but you're using dialogue and character and that sort of thing to handle it. So opportunities, this is my perspective, for stories are everywhere. And because my faith is so intertwined with stories, that means there are infinite opportunities to grapple and witness and challenge, and yes, treasure and ponder. So that is my little presentation on the book. I'm happy to take questions if there's time. We'll end with a prayer. But if there's any questions, then I'll read the prayer out loud after, if you have any. She's good. She's good. She's living her best life at Michigan now, majoring in statistics. And there were several people who said she needs to talk to her advisor and get an extension and all this stuff, and she didn't. She ended up really doing a fantastic job in her first semester, and she's rushed, so she's in Kappa Delta now, and living right above Joe's Pizza with 5 other girls, having the time of her life. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you're writing, what do you observe about your body
Well,
and the relationship of your embodiment to writing?
Mm-hmm. I suppose it depends on what I'm writing about. When I know that tension or conflict is coming up, it's not a great feeling. So I probably start to feel it in my stomach. Certainly, I probably cry if I'm really dealing with a lot. But the other thing is, I know that writing for me is a lot like prayer, and so I am also under the impression or the belief that I'm saying, here's what you gave me, God, and here's what I'm going to do with it. And so it does feel like an offering in that sense, and I don't necessarily think offering should feel all that fantastic. You're risking something when you're offering up something. So I'm certainly tense when I'm writing, but writing is also one of the only places where I feel completely at home, like your dog. It's like so excited that I'm doing this like kind of disgusting thing, and so it's exhilarating too to be writing. So. I guess Disgusting in regards to what I might be writing about, or like maybe that first draft, not maybe, the first draft is horrible, but man, am I excited to be able to get at it and get started. Yeah, my first drafts are horrible. So yeah, maybe that's what I mean by disgusting. Or terrifying too. You know, it is kind of a terrifying thing to see that and then to think about what you're writing about too. You don't know where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah, so Callie, I loved when you were explaining kind of how you'd structured the chapters based on the feedback from your friend.
Yeah.
Can you detail at all, again, more about your process that you use for writing? Like, and then are you working on another book?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll answer the second question first because that's easier. My friend Megan Willoughby and I are, I don't know if I'm saying we're rewriting the Psalms, but we're taking the Psalms and we're writing our own, Psalm 1, Psalm 2, Psalm 3. And then we have little essays in between those, and we're hoping to get that published as well. So that's one thing. So that's one thing that I'm working on. My process... I always know what I'm going to be working on the next day, and I am very my writing is in components, so I have blogging on one day, and then I try to do that and prep those posts for the week, and then Monday through Friday I'm writing before I go to work. And I just have an idea of the essays or the manuscript that I'm working on. I tend to start with a poem. I love to interact with a poem. I've never really thought of poetry as something that needs to be understood. I think it just wants to be interacted with. So I'll print out a poem and go through it. And a lot of like the sensory details, a lot of times that will spark something and it lead me into an essay or something along those lines. Let's see. My tried and true writing, I can write for 90 minutes. That's about what I can do. I could take a break after that and then maybe pick it up later in the afternoon, but 90 minutes is my tried and true max, and this is why. I make 3 cups of coffee, and I pour 1, and I set the kitchen timer for 30 minutes, and my rule is I cannot get up. I can't check, Facebook. I can't check anything. I also write longhand, so I'm never around technology when I'm writing. So that's my rule. When the timer goes off, I can get up, walk down, pour another cup of coffee, and go back upstairs. So that's my 30-minute rule. I'm very big on treats. So. Yeah, that's a little bit of the process. And walking away from it, if you're like writing it, and I always know it's a cue to write, to walk away from it when I feel really horrible. I know that we need a timeout, and then I'll come back and look at it later. So always, I never write something and then just send it off. It needs some time. Yeah.
Any other questions? Well,
I'll pray us out, and then and again, I have these slides in a workbook form. If anybody wants them, I can email them to you. All right. Dear artist of the universe, beloved sculptor, singer, and author of my life, born of your image, I have made a home in the open fields of your heart. The magnetic tug of your invitation to grow is slowly transforming me into a gift for the world. Mentor me into healthy ways of living. Amen.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. And we have a little blessing for you. Appreciation.
Oh, thank you.
Spent this time with us.
Thank you. Oh, that's beautiful.
In a way that's so productive.
Thank you.
I think for people
That's beautiful.
as they're thinking about how to tap and connect with the sacred in just all parts of everyday life.
Thank you.
And how to think about writing about that and the importance of engaging actively, whether it's through writing or this morning we had dance, we had
Painting, yeah.
we had an array of creativity, singing, So,
Yeah.
thank you so
Appreciate it.
much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And next week, keep in mind that we're starting a 3-part series and exploring the faith on palliative care, end of life issues. And Mel's going to be back. She's organized these, and so it'll be palliative care, social worker, or people who are working with people at the end of life and their families. So join us for the next 3 sessions. Thank you.